got James, MC, Laura. Oh, hey, what's going on, Tay?
Hi.
Awesome.
What's going on?
What's going on? So I think we're just missing Connie. She's headed back, or she's coming back from work, so she'll be here in a bit. Dawson had that all set up. But welcome, everyone. How's everyone doing?
Good. Just tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're cooking for a 67-year-old man is getting tough. Yeah.
You look good for 67 though.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Well, I lost 75 pounds. I became vegan
now, right?
Yeah. April was a year. And then, it was a year. And then we went from March until, and I put on about 10 or 15 back because, sitting around on my butt doing nothing. And now, that we're back. So I'm trying to stay with it. I mean, it's not true. I'm staying with it. And it's pretty, the hardest part for me when I first started was the no eggs, no cheese, But now the cheese part, there's so much cheese out there now. But there's still no runny eggs yet for me, man. So that's it.
That's a tough one.
That's it.
Oh my God.
Well, cool. I guess.
Now, where is everybody? I'm in Rochester.
Yeah. So we'll just jump in. We'll jump in now, and then Connie will join maybe in a few minutes. But yeah, basically, Full Table is a podcast that a friend of mine had started originally, and then he reached out to Allie and I, wanting us to basically do some recipes for each episode, and so it kind of took off from there. So essentially it's like a curated dinner. We have like a dinner table conversation essentially right now because of COVID. We're doing it obviously over Zoom, but the idea is that each episode has a different theme and there's a recipe with each theme. James, I didn't send you the recipe because I just asked you essentially this morning if you'd come on, so I didn't want to bother you with it.
Oh, that sucks.
We'll send it over to you.
Yeah, it's not too late.
Okay.
But so the recipe we did for today, since we're all industry people, is fried rice. I know it's a staple for me anytime I get home after a long shift. Back when I used to work, but that was always a staple for me. I always had leftover rice, and so we thought it was kind of like a perfect restaurant theme. And so I guess a couple of things that we wanted to talk about before we jump into introductions, which is how your lives have been impacted professionally by COVID, and what we all think the future of the industry looks like, and if there's any positive takeaways from all the change that's going to happen when people start to reopen. So yeah, I'd love to go through, and everyone just quickly introduce yourselves. Maybe we'll go Laura first, and then talk about just where you're from, your connection, I guess, to the industry and how you got started.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura. I own Blue Door Gatherings in Holyoke, Massachusetts, and recently started another company called Tula, which is a collaborative project with another woman, Unmi Abgin. And my connection to the podcast is through Allie and Graham. I went to school with them, culinary school in Hyde Park, and so I'm really excited to be here.
And maybe James, you want to go next?
Chester, New York. I know Graham from when he was a kid, and before he went to culinary school. And so I own a restaurant, a diner in Rochester. So just trying to get things back. We were closed from the 15th until about 3 weeks ago. And they are just letting us do inside seating. Before it was outside seating. And so we're 50% occupancy. I don't know how you guys are doing, I thought the first girl, Laura, I didn't have sound when she was talking. So I saw her picture, so I don't know what she said. So, so that's it.
Okay.
Cool. And then MC, you want to go?
Yeah, sure. So my name's MC. I am the director of wine and restaurant operations for a brand called The Riddler. We have a bar in San Francisco, and we have a restaurant in Manhattan. We also have a champagne brand. And I know Allie and Graham. Graham and I worked together. We opened In Situ maybe 4 or 5 years ago together, and became friends and have been friends and working in the industry together since then. Yeah.
And I think that leaves you, Tay.
Me. Yeah, I know Allie. We used to work together with Progress. She's a sweetheart. She's someone very dear to me. I'm from Maryland. I'm currently here. I left my last job in November, and I've been at a restaurant since then. I was the chef at Momofuku, and I was doing private chef work and sort of starting to look at real estate for my own restaurant, like literally just a few weeks before all the shutdowns started. And sort of now I'm in limbo, much like the rest of the world in restaurants. So nice to meet all of you. I'll be on the phone.
Yeah. Nice.
I didn't hear the first part we cut out. Are you in San Fran also?
I used to be. I'm from the East Coast, from Maryland, and I'm back here now.
Are you back in Maryland?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the beginning.
Oh, no worries.
Okay.
So Tay, you said you were looking for a place to open a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
Is your plan on the type of restaurant and the style of restaurant you plan to open, has that changed now since everything that's going on, or?
I think honestly, like the question has moved away from what type of restaurant to a restaurant at all. You know, I think that like that's
Wow.
the bigger dialogue for me, you know, like, and that doesn't mean everything's off the table. It just means that like the market is going to unfold in like dynamic ways that we just have no idea how to predict realistically now over like the next 1 month, 5 months, a year, etc. So it's like, for me, I feel so blind to like how to approach it right now in like regardless of area. So that's kind of like my broadest feelings about it right now.
Yeah, for sure. And is that because, I mean, are you looking at potentially opening a different kind of food service establishment, or it's more like you're just going to wait and see how this whole thing plays out?
I had started an LLC to start doing private chef work before this, the intention of that moving into a restaurant or restaurants. So my assumption would be that I'll just pursue that for a few months as I watch how the customer base responds to like 50% occupancy and sort of like things like that. And the big thing for me is like, and I'm sure you guys as well, is like the challenge we have now is like, how do we gather as much information as we possibly can right now when no one has really been able to beta test anything but curbside, et cetera. So like, I think that's obviously the most obvious question.
And James, what about you? So you said they're just starting to, there's a little bit of noise in the background. I don't know if that's.
No, it's not me. Everything's dead here. But I had a thing popped up that said mute, but are you guys okay now? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Loud and clear.
The biggest problem that I'm having right now is just personnel, man. I mean, with this thing that's going on, and you got people making more money now than they were making before, and they want to double dip. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They want, and that's killing me. And like I said, I'm not used to cooking, as much as I'm cooking now. And we've already cut back. We're only open Wednesday through Sunday now. And I lost an hour. We used to open at 7. Well, it really doesn't. I'm a diner. We opened at 7. Now we open at 8. And if we're busy, I plan to stay open until 2. But most of the days now we're closing at 1. And now my biggest thing is trying to find help. And I mean cook help as well as servers. It's just nobody wants to come to work. And it's they don't understand. Like, I've lost probably 40% of my income during the day trying to get people in, and then they want like I said, they want to double dip, and they want to, and I can't do it. I just it's so what's happening is, if I want to stay open, I got to cook. And I don't really want to do it. And so I'm about ready to put ads out now for people who don't have unemployment, who are looking for work. Because if they have, I don't know how long this is going to last. I mean, that's the whole thing. And what all these people that are doing it, don't understand is that we're going to be losing restaurants quickly, quickly. And all of those people, they don't realize, well, I'm a great cook, I'm a great chef, but you may be, but your ability to go out and find a place to work is getting ready to be cut in half, if not more. And so the cream's going to rise to the top, as far as the best chefs, the best cooks, and the best servers. And so if you're on the fringe, you're going to fall. You're going to fall.
And I think that's a really interesting point. Just when you talk about like all the problems that exist in the hospitality industry, whether it's like the razor thin margins or the fact that restaurants can't save money in case for a rainy day, or the fact that it's so hard to find cooks. I wonder sometimes if the end result of the whole coronavirus thing, if potentially like 20% of the food service establishments close, like I wonder if any of those problems get fixed kind of automatically by the fact that the market won't be so saturated anymore. I mean, I think of like food cities like San Francisco or even DC, where opening a creative like restaurant that serves amazing food and you have like a great background, like it's almost not enough anymore to be like world class at what you
Agreed.
do.
Yeah, agreed.
And so I wonder, I don't know, maybe Tay, you can talk to that a little bit. Just what you think about potentially like almost like positive outcomes that might come out of this for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I think that like the first thing that a lot of owners would say is that this will solve a lot of labor issues in kind of a fucked up way. I mean, I think that is kind of like an inevitable reality. I think it is hard to find positives, but I think one thing is that restaurant owners, chefs, operators are going to be forced to become much smarter and much better at their jobs, which will in turn lead to the restaurants that succeed will be better run. I mean, there'll be better operations because they're going to have to consider HACCP in a different way. They're going to have to consider sanitation in a different way. They're going to have to consider diversity and respect and like tolerance in the kitchen in like a totally different way. So I think like restaurant operators and owners moving forward, like, they're going to have to just be more informed. I think that that's the reality. And that is the positive reality. I mean, like how many of them succeed will be fucking really scary to watch. But I mean, that is what will have to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Connie, you just joined us. Welcome.
Sorry.
Welcome in. Thanks for coming.
Hi. Hi, friends. Hi, friends.
Hey.
Hello to those I don't. Nice to meet you.
So, Connie, I just want to quickly go over a little bit about yourself, how you're related to food, and yeah, that's it. Quick little intro.
Like a quick bio, just like who I am.
Yeah, I needed a full paragraph, 5 sentences, 12-point font, no fucking around.
Dude, 12 point, I'll go 8, you won't even know it. No one will know. Hi, I'm Connie. I've been a chef in the Bay Area for 5 years, worked in New York for a while. Currently doing event catering, was teaching cooking classes, and then obviously when COVID happened, we pivoted like most establishments in the industry and starting doing to go. We were volunteering and feeding hospital workers for a while, trying to just feed as many people as we could in a safe way. I mean, basically just been cooking for the last 10 years. So seen 2 decades worth of cooking and seeing the ups and downs, and starting in the early 2000s, got to see kind of like how the energy has changed from kind of like that hardcore, like you work hard and you don't say anything, to more of like now there's healthcare and tips and things like that. So it's been pretty interesting to see some of that as a super young cook to today, seeing everyone and listening to chefs as they grow, and who are possibly like a lot of people trying to open up businesses right now. I mean, this is the time. A lot of people that I grew up with in the kitchen are considering opening up businesses, and just kind of seeing all those trials has been kind of bonkers and like so insane. But yeah, so I guess is that a bio? Did I do it?
Yeah, you passed A+.
Yeah.
Laura, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind speaking to Blue Door and then how you've sort of pivoted with Tula as well as with your space in Holyoke.
Sure, I would love to. So this year has been pretty unexpected, as with most businesses in the food industry, and we've really had to reinvent ourselves because at Blue Door, we are an event company, and so most of our year is just weddings and corporate events, and so the year has really just cleared out completely, and everything has been luckily postponed until next year. So really not looking at a lot of cancellations, but just delays. But that also comes with its own challenges. And sort of as a survival tactic, I found that, you know, around here, it's really been crucial for us to collaborate with other businesses. And I've been very fortunate to start working with a local restaurant called Coco in the Cellar Bar. And so I went from event catering and private gatherings and supper clubs in my space in Holyoke to sort of this takeout model for a restaurant that's very near and dear to my heart. And so Blue Door has been providing a lot of desserts, baked products, and take and bake items for the restaurant to sort of bulk up this online store that we started, I would say, 2 months ago. And so that's been going very well for us and has been crucial during this time to kind of think about what the next few months look like. And we're not really open to the idea of outdoor dining at this point. And so we're just going to keep kind of trucking along doing this takeout online system. And so far it's been going very well for us. And on a side note, we've kind of taken this time as sort of a luxury to have some extra time, free time that we wouldn't otherwise have to start a secondary business. And so the owner of Coco in the Cellar Bar, Unmi, and I are starting a plant-based food company called Tula. And it was originally going to be sort of a meal subscription plan, but we've also expanded to include dinners and sort of an a la carte window. So that's going to be coming out of the Blue Door space as well. So we're going to be using this time to build a storefront and kind of move into a new business in addition to all of these changes. So it's been an interesting time to kind of reinvent and restructure our business, and it's inspired a lot of innovation and collaboration with local people, which I think is a positive takeaway from all of this.
Do you think any of that will survive post reopening? Like, say we get a vaccine and you can start to do events again. Do you think any of the to-go food and the take and bake stuff, do you think you'll want to keep doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a huge market for it, and people are looking for that right now. And it was really interesting at first because we were trying to create a menu that we thought people wanted, and we were doing dinners that were like directly inspired from menus that we had done in the past, and fancier desserts like that we thought we could recreate as a takeout item, and some of those work, but as a surprise, we we're selling cookie dough to bake at home, and people are buying that like crazy. And it's just, I think people are looking for comfort, and they still crave that sense of being taken care of. And so we've had to reimagine how to give people that experience of hospitality and service when we don't really interact with them at all. And so I think the way we can do that is in writing menus that kind of speak to the time right now. And I think now is not exactly the time to be introducing new unfamiliar items. It might be the time to kind of recreate some old favorites and kind of invoke some nostalgia in food.
Yeah, definitely. It's funny you say that too, because I went to the Progress yesterday in San Francisco to pick up dinner, and we were talking to Chef Stewart, and he was saying how when they were trying to sell desserts, like plated desserts, and they were having such a hard time doing it. And then they were like, he's like, oh, I'm gonna sell like cookie dough, and then you can just cook it at home. And people were like, he was like, that's the best idea ever. Everyone's gonna love it. And then all of a sudden, no one's buying it. And he was like, what the hell is going on? Like, no one wants plated desserts. No one wants like cookie dough. And then he just started selling ice cream by the half pint and like baked cookies, and they couldn't keep them on the shelves. So it's really funny that like people are really looking for comfort and convenience at this point, and they're not looking for like a struggle. They just want like easy food that makes you feel good.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you say that. I loved seeing that dinner on Instagram the other night.
Oh.
I think it's true. You know, I think also we were thinking and like looking to our friends during this time and seeing people kind of diving into these bigger cooking projects, and we're like, oh, people actually want to cook at home. And we thought, you know, kind of offering some sort of meal kits and things that people could partially do at home might be a good thing. But I think when people are looking to get takeout or order from a restaurant, they're looking for the convenience factor or the sense of being taken care of. So
Yeah,
For sure.
and there's definitely a difference in now. You've never been able to get like this quality of to-go food at your door.
I
There's,
mean,
like, the number. Yeah.
sushi, like the fancy sushis to go, or like Waco Sushi on Clement Street in San Francisco is like one of a kind, and he's like, caviar, let's go.
Wow.
Oh my God, that's insane. But I mean, everybody's struggling. But Laura, just to piggyback kind of on what you were saying about that comfort in the take and bake, which I love that saying. I'm definitely going to steal that somewhere, somehow. That's awesome. But
hey, you can have it.
I think it's the cake mix theory, you know, like when cake mix came around in like the early 60s, it was ready to go, but nobody wanted it. But the fact that you add an egg and some oil, it makes it homemade.
Yeah.
And I think people, because of COVID, have been cooking a lot at home, and like that structure of just kind of getting something to go, but you still have to do something. I agree. I think even after, if we get a vaccine, there's still going to be a pretty high market, because people are always curious about how their favorite restaurants do things. You know, they can't help themselves. It's because it's like, oh, well, how did you do that? And you're like, oh, I put sesame seeds in the oven and then they toast, and they're like, and you're like, yeah, it's nuts. You know, it's like that, those little things that market is so, it's so big. And I think people cooking at home are starting to get a little bit more into it. So,
I
and
wonder though, off that too, is like how people are gonna react when prices go back up when they go to restaurants. Because right now stuff is like pretty cheap, like or cheap for like what it is. Like people are selling wine at retail prices to go, and like I bought a bottle of wine last night at retail price at the Progress, and now I'm and I know how much we sold that at, like a la carte on the menu. And so I'm just like, I don't know. I wonder if people are going to revolt, like be pissed about how much everything's going to cost. And I also wonder how much this is going to affect the ability for restaurants to, or I guess affect the way that restaurants are going to potentially change financially too. Like James was saying that he's having a really hard time finding employees. Like, how is this going to affect the way that people are treated because people are expecting more money? I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I feel like that's going to be a really big change.
I think, if I could, I know one of the things that we're talking about pretty extensively is we're a bar, but we're at a really high price point, and we've always had full service. And we're trying to figure out a model in which we may or may not, we may go to a fast casual model with the same product. But and one of the reasons that we're exploring this option so heavily is because of the ability for cross-training. And the ability to shrink the wage gap. I feel really, really strong that I don't want to reopen a restaurant where the front of house staff is averaging $60 an hour and the back of house is making 18. And so we're trying to figure out how to do that. And who we're going to hire. I think we're going to have, I think kind of speaking to what someone was saying earlier, I think there's going to be this almost like slingshot effect where no one wants to work right now because in San Francisco, unemployment's almost $27 an hour. So no one wants to come in and wash dishes or put their health at risk or serve tables or whatever. And I think that's okay. I mean, it's a huge problem, but I understand where they're coming from. But I think that 3 months from now, when unemployment is cut down and half the restaurants have gone out of business, there's going to be this mad dash back to work where there's going to be a lot fewer jobs than there were before, at least temporarily. And so I know our big focus is trying to figure out a way to put, even if it's fewer jobs, better jobs for everyone on the table. But I mean, it's an uphill battle. Like our margins are razor thin. We've also gone to retail structured pricing. Our rent hasn't changed. So it's, I don't know, we're just trying to figure it out.
How has everyone been affected? To give you, we closed in March, and I went back and I went to buy gloves, nitro gloves.
Mm-hmm.
$15 I paid for gloves. Has anyone had that? It went from $6 to $15 friggin' dollars.
Wow.
I was like, I bought 4 boxes and blah, 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 and the guy rang it up and I said, yeah, here we go. He goes, it was $70. I go, no, dude, I had the gloves.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Oh, he goes, you haven't bought gloves in a while. I go, dude, I've been closed for 3 months.
Yeah.
They were $15 for a box of 100 gloves, nitro gloves. I was just,
wow.
And how to-goes? Has anyone seen the increase in to-goes? And like here, we're only using to-go silverware, already wrapped, that kind of stuff. And we can't leave anything on the tables, no bottles, no anything, everything has to be PCs, port control. And that shot the cost of everything up.
Yeah.
So is anyone else having any of that?
Yeah, I mean, totally. The price of disposables is not something that we had ever even really used before. Maybe we'll buy a sleeve of 1,000 boxes for a year or something. And so now it's thinking about every single thing, like every napkin being disposable. It's like, okay, we're using linen likes, they're 9 cents a piece. Do we still want to use those if we have to give out,
right.
all of these boxes? And are we going to use to go? Are we going to use compostable glass? Or are we going to use? It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's very different, and the cost, we can just bake the cost in, but it's like a different experience altogether. It's just, I don't know.
Are they letting the bars there do takeout? Like you can make a margarita there?
Yeah, and hand it out the window. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so they have loosened the restrictions.
So that never, yeah, it's crazy. But I was just curious, how, because I almost went into shock, almost went into shock. $15.
Yeah, that's a huge increase. That's crazy. Especially if you're expected to wear a different pair of gloves every time you go to a new table.
Yeah.
And we luck out here, believe it or not, the city gave each restaurant 500 masks.
Oh, wow. That's nice.
You just pull up and they throw them in your car. 500 masks. And I was like, oh, they're giving us something, it was crazy. It was crazy. But I don't know, if you were talking about, who's going to last. And I was telling Graham before, I said, they're saying, oh, well, 20%. I think we'd be lucky if it's only 20%, that last. And then like you were just saying about, hopefully it's going to make the cream rise to the top as far as the quality of of employees and things like that. But still, who knows? Who knows who's going to be around?
But I think that raises an interesting point. A lot of times people talk about like the restaurants or bars that are going to close as a result of this, but there's like a whole supply chain that exists behind all of these businesses that are affected just as much. So for instance, like a fish purveyor has lost at least like 75% of their business. I mean, maybe all the expensive chirashi bowls like at Junie and stuff are supporting it a little bit, but the idea that we're going to have essentially a supply chain to go back to after this is like something that people have been talking a bit more about. You think about all the small farmers and all these people who don't have the capacity to go sell their fish or their meat or their vegetables at a place like Whole Foods, and especially because they've been. I think I saw this originally on like the David Chang podcast, but they were talking about how restaurants operate. I mean, another problem with the razor thin margins is that restaurants operate on credit for all of these things, and so if they run out of money, like the purveyors have already given people a product that they might just never get paid for, and so there's no money even for them to like try to pivot and do anything else, and they don't have the resources to sell their products in any other capacity. And so, yeah, I mean, hopefully we have as many restaurants as possible to go back to, but also hopefully there's like a system for these restaurants to be able to buy products above.
Were you familiar with Maine's food service?
No, I don't think so.
Maine's, they were like Cisco, and like those guys, they were at least as big as Cisco. You know Cisco back in Rochester?
Yeah.
Maine's gone.
Oh.
Maine's, I found out, yeah, gone. Out of business. And that was like losing a Cisco. You know, that's how big. And then my guy, I was buying from Rochester Meats, and I went in to buy from them, and I just found out they got bought out by some guy in Buffalo, Lanai, or an Italian name. And I was like, okay, there's two gone. And that's purveyors.
Yeah.
Purveyor, like you were just saying. Purveyors, gone. And they won't be back.
Our purveyors are definitely in the past couple of weeks, like especially in Manhattan, are really hurting. It used to be like, I mean, they just basically have had I can tell they're hurting because they have no limits. Like they were like, we'll drop off a dozen oysters.
No minimums, nothing.
You know, like no minimum. We'll drop it off at 2:00 whenever you want. Like, please order. And it's just like, I mean, they're being super generous too, but also it's like I can tell, you know, that, I mean, we're not ordering anything. We used to order, you know, 150 times that a week or whatever, and we haven't ordered since March, and now I'm sure that's the case all around the neighborhood. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I know, like from our perspective, we just got all of our patio dining permits for the parking. Like SF is launching this shared spaces program, so we're on a corner, and we got the 3 parking spaces in front of the building, and we have the ability now, you know, to put 35 seats out there, and so that's good. And we were supposed to open today, and we made everyone get tested for coronavirus before they came back to work. We were going to run with a team of 4 people, 3 people. One person has, like, everyone's been exposed. 2 of the people on the team, basically their partners work with someone who has it. So like now now we're closed for 2 weeks.
Oh man.
So just that kind of like bombshell yesterday, it felt so good to like be in the space and like get, you know, be setting up and like thinking about reopening. And then, you know, luckily actually kind of it happened before we actually reopened. And no one's even sick. Like no one that we work with is actually even sick. They've just been exposed to people who have been exposed to people that are sick, and it doesn't feel safe. So, you know, the reality of that, and then thinking about like, if that's going to be the situation, it's just a ticking time bomb right now for us. Like if we're going to be open serving the public until someone gets sick, and then we'll have to shut it all down. So that's something that we have to like definitely consider in our financial model. I mean, we're still comfortable doing takeout and pickup, But as far as like welcoming guests into the space and doing service, it's like it seems too soon.
Has another question real quick. The whole thing with Grubhub and these guys, I mean, here it was like 30%,
Yeah.
A cost. And we're only we're working on 30% cost. So now that
Right.
makes your cost 50%.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And how's that affecting you guys? I mean, I'm curious. Because I refuse to use it. Either they, if they come in, if they want to take out, you can pick it up, and then we have inside, well, we used to have seating for 60, now we have seating for 15, just because of the way the restaurant, well, they say 50%, but I don't have the space, to be 6 feet away.
Right.
So I don't have 60%. I have 50%. I have 25%.
Yeah.
And how's that affecting anybody else out there? I'm just curious.
Well, we're not allowed to do in New York and San Francisco, at least where I am in Oconee too, we're not allowed to do any indoor dining yet.
Oh, no indoor?
No.
Oh,
none.
what?
Yeah.
And they just delayed, like maybe 5 minutes before we got on this call, they just pushed back. Indoor dining was supposed to be July 13th, but they just pushed it back.
Yeah.
Holy moly, I have no idea, guys. Wow. Wow.
When London Breed and the city of San Francisco came out with the opening, they were all phases, and it's like an asterisk of like, these are phases, but these phases can be pulled back literally at any time within a 6-hour notice, and so it's like talking to MC, it's just like she just was like, okay, like we're gonna try and do this, but the chances of it working out is like maybe like 90%. And you're just like, I think everyone's just like, yeah, fuck it, let's try it. Like, what's the worst that can happen, And so it's kind of, it sucked. Like, you guys were so close to doing it, and then all of a sudden, it's just, it's really just not worth it. I think people are, it's such a weird feeling because people are very excited to get back to it. And then you get reminded that there is a pandemic actually going down,
Absolutely. I felt like such an idiot, actually. I was like so stoked yesterday, like in the space, or Wednesday. And then I woke up yesterday super early. I was like, oh, we're going to train team day. It's going to be so fun. And then at 7 a.m. they were like, no, we're not doing it. Call it off. It's canceled. And I was like, ah. And then I was like, oh yeah, we can't open a restaurant right now. It's like the highest day of cases so far. Like, I'm just gonna go back into my house. This is terrible.
The mask and glove things there, are they paying attention to the mask and glove things? Okay, yeah.
Pretty good.
You mean like in general, just like all public places?
Yeah, in general.
Yeah.
In general.
I would say San Francisco.
This is here. You can't go in a restaurant. The restaurants. Once you go in, you sit. You can take the mask off. But like to go grocery shop, any store you go in here in Rochester, you got to have a mask on. Got to have a mask.
Yeah, they've definitely been pretty strict about wearing masks. You like can't go into any store without a mask on. And then sometimes if you're like walking on the street and you're not wearing a mask, people look at you like you're crazy. And it's actually funny too, because we were in Colorado for the last month, and we were driving home on Sunday of last week, and every gas station from Colorado to San Francisco, no one was wearing a mask at all. Even in Tahoe, like an hour outside of San Francisco, people weren't wearing masks. They weren't social distancing at all. People were just like rubbing up against each other. It was so weird.
Yeah, it's so weird.
I was just like, yeah, MC was with us. And I could not believe it. I couldn't believe it. It's like it didn't even exist. I don't know. So wow, that's why we're having a second wave and why Texas is closing again.
Yeah. Texas and Arizona.
Oh, it's going to be crazy, man. We're all going to get hit again. We're going to get hit again.
Right. And so
New York.
Sorry, go ahead, James.
No. I was just saying New York, Governor Cuomo, he's not messing around, man. Everything is, and everybody's, he's an asshole, but you know what? He's trying to save lives, man.
Yeah, I totally
trying to save lives.
Yeah.
So to that end, I think it's do you guys believe that, like, I know people are super stoked about going back out to restaurants, but do you think that, or how do you think that to-go food is going to be perceived, like, in the future? Anybody, like, do you think that's going to become the norm and people are going to more so expect that, or think people are going to want to, like, jump right in?
I think every responsible business owner who's going to open post-COVID will already build it into their business plan, whereas before it would have been something they would consider based on market, demographic, location, etc. But now moving forward, you will have to build it in. It will be irresponsible to not build it in because of, I mean, like, this is proven to be, in my mind, sustainable, not just because of the pandemic, but because of pure, like, convenience. You know what I mean? Just like as a generation, like, this is what we're based on, and, like, not to get, like, too broad with that. But I think, like, it's proven that it has legs beyond the fact that right now it's the only real resource in terms of accessibility. So I think that, I mean, even for me, like, if I was to open a restaurant, I would be factoring that in a huge way when I was, like, looking at the physical space of a restaurant, like, how can you build it around in a functional way to facilitate that? I mean, like, James, to your point about space, it's like you now have to consider, like, what might have been a 30-seat dining room is now going to be a 12-seat dining room. So it's like your whole
Right.
perspective has to change on how you approach that. And I think that, like I said, business owners, or smart ones, I should clarify, like, they'll have to build it into sort of like what their plan looks like.
Right. Yeah, and no one is above to-go food. Like, look at Alinea. They're crushing it.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
You know what's killing me? What's killing me right now is no one is going to work. Everyone is staying at home. So I used to get people getting I do big time breakfast, and now there's nobody going to breakfast. They're sleeping in late. They're doing it. So, like I said, we went from 7 o'clock opening till 8 o'clock, and I'm just getting people in at 9 o'clock. And it's just, you know, for me, for being a breakfast place, and I mean, nobody really is ordering a lot of breakfast. Today, we were going to close at 1 o'clock today. At 12:45, I got 4 tables. It was crazy. It was crazy. I was almost pissed because we were just getting ready to start tearing down, but I needed the money.
Right.
You know, I needed the money, but I did. I got 3 2s and 4. 3 2s and a 4. You know, but it just, I don't know, guys. I mean, for me, trying to figure out how to get people ordering breakfast and lunch, you know, and now everyone's ordering dinner. That was a question I had before. Were many of you guys in the restaurant are you doing much for family? You know, like here, feed a family of 4. This is a to-go to feed a family of 4. Have you guys seen much of that kind of stuff?
Sorry.
A family of 6, you know?
Actually, that's exactly what our business model is over where I'm working at Jordan's Kitchen. The idea is we've reached out to our previous clients who have kids who are being homeschooled now. And now not only are they working from home, which is weird, now they have like 2 rugrats running around and they need to be homeschooled and babysat, you know, because they can't do it. So we're getting a lot of people who just need that Tuesday night meal of just like one and done.
Right.
You take it out of the quart container and like at least Tuesday night dinner is taken care of. And we got a lot of business because that was our model. We were just like, hey, we know life is crazy, but like, here's some baked ziti and a couple pieces of garlic bread. Like, but I mean, it was substantial. I mean, we make enough to feed 4 plus leftovers for the next day. And
right.
For a while when people couldn't leave the house, it like we were selling out every time. But now we're starting to see that now that people can go out, you know, and in San Francisco in June, we kind of have not the best weather. So everybody leaves who can, you know, people go up to the beach, they go down to the beach, they go to Napa, it's hotter. And so we're pivoting to being more like, hey, take this kit and grill it wherever you're going, you know, but there is still a need for families because the summer is going to come up and they're going to have to they just have to deal with their kids more, which is which is
Right.
great, but it's also like a lot more than anyone expected because everybody was like, oh, we're going to do summer camp, and all these ideas are just getting, it rippled everywhere. Everything you can think of, every business got just affected somehow. And I think that I kind of wonder, because our business went down, but as a second wave starts to increase, I mean, I think it's not proven, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to be in another situation, and at least by the end of September. I'm trying to be optimistic and being like, maybe we'll be a little more prepared because we've been in it for the last 3 months. But I mean, who's to say? But I will say that families are like looking inward and seeing how they can help each other and help small businesses. I think there's a lot of love being spread around, and everybody's kind of trying to get to go in every little space because they just want to give funding to anyone they can, So,
Yeah.
which has been pretty cool to see, each industry kind of helping out ours, because ours
I'll
got,
tell you, I don't know if that happened, that we have a couple of places here. I don't know if Grant heard this, but Dinosaur Barbecue here, big barbecue place, they were doing tons of takeout. And then when they started doing the protesting, they were shutting their street off. So they lost all of that business. And I mean, was that happening anywhere there where the protesters were shutting down streets and things like that, so businesses couldn't do to-goes because they couldn't pick up? The group, I'm just curious, if that affected anyone else there. But these guys, their head chef was in my place about a week ago, and he said, "Man, the protesters killed us." He goes, "We were doing takeout like you could not believe." And because now they were protesting on the street up from us, the police were shutting off their street, and it killed their business.
We went to a protest in Denver, and the streets were closed, so we actually had ordered pizza to go home, and we could not get to the pizza place. And then when we were doing like the whole walk through the city, they had closed a bunch of streets as well. And I remember just walking down like one of these main streets in Denver and seeing so many people at restaurants like eating and just like staring at us. And but it was, I'm sure that many restaurants were affected by it. I don't know about San Francisco, though. We weren't here when most of the protests were going on.
But I think as in the context of like how long this is going to last, we've kind of made a decision as a society that like the social rights movement going on is like just a little bit more important than the social distancing. And so I think I don't see like an end in sight the way that some other countries have been able to kind of go back to a new normal. And so I wonder how long can we keep the businesses closed before we sort of accept the risk of dining out as a new normal. And so I wonder what kind of like the 8 month from now restaurant scene looks like. Cause I don't see it as a possibility to keep restaurants closed kind of indefinitely if it turns out to be an entire year. And so I wonder, with everyone doing to-go food, like is that really an industry that's going to take off to the degree that it can like sustain businesses? I don't know that even 90% of the restaurants could survive it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest with you, I'm just spitballing statistics, but I bet like between like 8 to 12 have already closed, and like that number is like shockingly low to me. Like I talked to Dave like 2 months ago, and like I was expecting closures to be like twice the amount they are right now. So I just kind of have to assume over the next 2 months, like this trajectory will continue to go up, just because like I feel like with the PPP, it was able to sustain like probably more restaurants than would have been able to stay open. So
That's exactly what I was going to say. The PPP, I think that's what did it.
Stayed open. So
I think PPP did it. Yeah.
And I mean, like, it's so fucked because it's like you get a PPP, and let's say that, like, not to hate on anybody, but let's say you're a bad business operator. Let's say like you don't like practice ethical things, like you don't have a well-structured business. So really all you're doing is cannibalizing business from people who might be good business operators. And if you get a PPP, then you're your shelf life is sustained, and in doing so, you're continuing to damage the market. So I think that like it's this really precarious situation right now where we're seeing closures, but I'm shocked we're not seeing more. And it might be better if we saw more. And I don't mean that against the business owners. I just mean like the industry, even before this, it couldn't sustain the trajectory it was on. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like the harder, like harsher reality is that like we were on a path in terms of like being like our labor margins were so fucked, like everything was so fucked that like that sort of like golden era of restaurants, like it was going to have to end, COVID or not. Like that sort of pace could not be maintained. So it's just fucking crazy to me.
Yeah, I think.
Do now.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, James.
No, I'm just trying to figure out what's going to happen. You know, when they cut this extra 600, and it's time for people to go back to work, and half. I mean, you know, the businesses are gone. You know, and now they're there, but they're not going to be there for long because, like you said, half of them aren't good businesses. They just have money now. You know what I mean? They have money. And when that money's gone, they're screwed.
Yeah, I think
You know,
that was a really good point before where you said like once that money is gone, it'll be a bum rush for all the sort of like our employees to try to get work. I think you made that point earlier, and like that is the reality. And you think that like that's a really scary reality for like, I don't know, like a 36-year-old line cook, you know what I mean, who was in that position before, and sort of like those jobs are going to like exponentially be less, you know. So like after the CARES Act sort of like is finished, I mean, the pool is going to be massive and the pool of jobs is going to be very small.
Oh, absolutely. See, that's exactly what I'm saying. There's going to be 50 people looking for jobs and there's going to be 5 jobs. So that means the best cooks will get those jobs probably, but what are they going to be paid? You know, how much, what's the pool, you know, the money pool going to be? Because I don't even know how, you know, if all those people aren't working, then they can't afford to go out to eat. And you know how many of us in the business, we go to other people's restaurants and we go to, you know, and that's gonna, you know, the tipping is gonna go down, you know, all of that. And I just see a lot of that happening. I think there's gonna be more, right now everybody's tipping like crazy because they got that extra $600 and, you know, and you go out to eat and then, you know, and you would have left a 5 and you left a 10 and, you know, and now it's but nobody, like, it's crazy. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. I don't know what's going to happen. And it's scaring me. I'm trying to decide if I even want to stay open. I mean, that's the way it's looking for me. I'm 67 years old. I've been doing this for 22 years. I had a restaurant for 22 years. And I'm about ready to say, you know what? I'm done. You know, I'm looking at weeks, you know, that I mean, I paid off everybody I owe, you know, so it isn't, I'm not other than landlord, you know, but I mean, I paid off my last purveyor. That's why I went to see him. And that's why he was, you know, I said, hey, look, I owe you $2,000. Here's your $2,000. And he was like, well, you know, this is your new guy. And I go, what? You know, well, this is your new guy. And I was like, okay. But the new guy didn't get an order from me, you know, because I didn't need anything. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know what's going to happen with what's out there. I mean, what are you going to do? You know, and then like you say, all the purveyors are going to go down, and then we're finding everything is going up, you know, for cost, and it's nuts. I went to buy steak the other day. You know, we do New York strips, you know, breakfast and steak and eggs. And the guy brought my steak out, you know, my loin, and he was like, okay, that's 110. I go, what? He goes, it's 110. I go, what? No, mine's usually 60. And he goes, oh. And it went up from $4.99 a pound to $8.99, $7.99 a pound. And I'm like, he goes, but you know, I've been sleeping at home for 3 months. I haven't been buying gloves. I haven't been buying steak.
Yeah.
You know, I'm vegan anyway, you know what I mean? But I don't, that's what's happening. I mean, I'm going into sticker shock, you know, about things that, you know, we normally were buying, and it's just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think Tay, you raised a really good point in that COVID didn't really cause these problems in the restaurant industry. I think anyone who's worked in restaurants knows that, like, margins are super thin. Owners are always really particular on how to, like, cut costs at every level, and it's almost as if COVID like illuminated or just accelerated all these problems to finally come to, like, the crashing point. And I don't know, maybe it's a little hard to try to see any positives out of this, but I do wonder if enough restaurants do close, like, if it'll just so drastically change the industry that we'll kind of be able to start over. So I wonder if you guys think if there's any, since a lot of these places are essentially opening from new and everyone's going to get rehired at once, if there's any positives that can come, like, structurally, or if there's a way to just be able to charge what the food is really worth finally, if there's any positives that can come out of this whole thing.
Yeah, Laura.
Oh, please.
I think in terms of catering, it's really shifted some things for the time being, and I'm interested to see if it's going to stay on this path. But last weekend, I was supposed to do a bridal shower, and it turned into a drop-off format, which I had previously been pretty adamantly against doing drop-offs because I'm a born control freak, and you just never know what people are going to do when they receive a drop-off catering thing. We've sort of structured our business around not doing that. And now it's interesting because this has really highlighted the importance of maybe reconsidering that. And, it actually forced some innovation and some, potential formatting that might kind of withstand this pandemic, and might be something that I want to keep doing in the future. So we did picnic baskets for each of the guests, and they sort of, the client structured the event so that all of the guests were kind of at a distance, but was still enjoying this experience. And so I'm interested to kind of look more into that style of gathering for events for the foreseeable future. And I don't know, I think that could be kind of a new market in terms of catering.
Yeah, I mean, what the fuck do I want to say? Yeah, you asked for positives in terms of, like, the infrastructure and, like, sort of like the systemic things. And I think that honestly, like, a positive will be, it will mirror sort of like the racial conflict right now that's happening in the world, in the same way where it's like, it will demand a different level of basic knowledge and a different level of information. I mean, like, when you think about the race discussion, what it demands is, it demands attention, it demands respect, and it demands education. And when you think about restaurants post-COVID, it's like, they're going to demand the same fucking things, because it's like, they are now going to have seen this sort of bleak, like, dystopian food world, right? And so now they're going to be armed with questions to ask themselves that they might not have been sort of, like, sharp enough to ask before. You think about so many fucking business owners who are just like, they're not asking the right questions. You know what I mean? They're not asking the hard questions. They're not asking the right questions. And now sort of like we have gotten a glimpse into, like you said, Graham, all of these things that systemically have been wrong with the food industry, sort of like how we treat each other ethically, sort of like how we structure our margins, like what our break-even point is, like, is that even like a sustainable life for us, so on and so forth. So it's like, we have seen that now come to light in a different way. So, I mean, like, to your point, like, you hope that can be sort of like a positive impetus for people to sort of like think differently about what the food industry is. And the leaders have to sort of like unify on that and sort of like lead the way in terms of like the proper leaders of our industry. But then to your other point, Graham, about like, will we now be able to charge for proper value of our products? I actually think it's going to be harder to do now, because like, if you look at pre-COVID, we were just entering a point like with the customers where they were more knowledgeable about food and about orientation or anything like that with food than they ever had been. They understood products in a different way. They understood the food chain. It didn't matter that much, but it mattered more than 5 years ago. And the notion of local mattered more than 10 years ago. So they were just inching towards this place where they were like, you know what, maybe this fucking farm does mean something to me. Maybe I'm willing to pay that extra $5. But now when you think about how it's decimated other people just outside of the industry in terms of their own financial situation, like, how are they now going to justify that when they're weighing safety, they're weighing their own fucking family's money? So it's like, I think it will be even harder now to pay full, like, proper dollar for those good products, which in turn, like you said, man, like, where does that leave the fucking farmers? Where does that leave that whole chain? You know, and that's brutal.
Yeah, for sure. Well, then let's hope that this brings a little bit more thought to business owners and the way that they design their businesses. And yeah, it's pretty fucking bleak.
Yeah, you made great points. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to add in something that I think has really become a very important value in both of my businesses right now is as our circle of people is getting smaller, our circle of employees and purveyors, I think that even more than ever, it's important to look at values in these people and kind of make sure that we're seeing eye to eye. And more than that, I mean, it's always been part of our philosophy to use local farms and small purveyors, but I think more than ever, supporting those people, it's really crucial, and it makes a difference. And it's a very tangible difference when you support those people. And I think that it's something that if anything sustains this, it's, you know, supporting small businesses and small farmers and thinking of them when you write your menus and you hire people.
Definitely.
I hope so, man. It's like I think a lot about, not all of you are from SF, but like there's a purveyor there. His name is Brent Wolf, like Connie, MC, and like Graham, you guys all know him. And it's like, he's just an example in the sense that like he focuses on one product, quail, and he does it impeccably. And you think about a single artisan like that who is so vulnerable to what's happening right now, because like the whole stake of his business is built on the fact that like he's charging way more, but he's bringing an amazing product. So it's like, what happens to him in this post world? And like, it's scary as shit because these artisans have given their lives like to devote in like such a specific way. And it's like, what can we do to sort of give back to that? And like, will they be able to sustain? And like, that is fucking scary and sad because like these people have worked so incredibly hard.
Yeah, well, I think hearing that someone, I think Laura, maybe you had said that, but a small businesses promoting small businesses. A lot like Nova in San Francisco, they support Tomatero Farms. They do a Tomatero Farm kit, a box every day. They can get a new box. Fatted Calf, also here in San Francisco, is doing River Dog Farms. So it's like people are afraid to go to the farmers market. But I've gone to the Marin Market, I've gone to the Clement Street Market here in San Francisco, and I've talked to farmers that I've either worked with when I was at the Progress, or I just talked to because, you know, I see them every Sunday in my neighborhood, and they seem to be okay because there is a wave of people who are coming from home and are starting. And I think that, like, piggyback on what Tay was saying, is that they are now understanding the food supply and like how much these things really are and how much chefs are actually paying to give this to you in a, like, you know, beautifully manicured way. So it seems really bleak, but I think there's so many solutions we can come up with, but it's just supporting everybody and just keep promoting, you know. And San Francisco is so unique because our entire food industry is based on this lifestyle. I mean, it started from Chez Panisse. It's been since like the 60s. Like this is just the way that this culture has been. But then you have to remember that we're in this like kind of unique basket that we do, and this is how we live our lives. And you kind of wonder about like Rochester or somewhere in Colorado, like, are they still kind of promoting these same values? And the only way to help these small farmers is you kind of hope that when restaurants open, they're promoting them and they're like opening more farmers markets and they're spreading the word and they're like allowing farmers to actually come and provide a booth. Like maybe it's they get a free space on a street somewhere so that they can like give their products to somebody in the market. But I totally agree. Someone like Brent Wolf, like who just does one thing and is like so good. And we sometimes we're like, wow, this is really expensive quail, but it's worth it every time. Someone who doesn't know isn't going to know that, you know? It's like you want to be optimistic about it, but it's really scary. It's super scary to think about your homies like going down because of this thing, you know? And they've been so successful for so long and they've seen this industry grow and they've been our uncles and aunts of this industry, and they're like, you know, their hands are tied. They can't do anything about it except hope that the younger generation makes a stand and promotes them. And I think that's all we can really do. I mean, honestly, it's like all I feel, and just spread the word as much as you can.
Yeah, and it's really like the parts of the industry that we value the most are unfortunately like the most vulnerable. I mean, I didn't know that, like you said, James, that big purveyor went under in Rochester, but the people who really define a lot of what we do, the small producers, like whether that's Brent Wolf or even like a small lamb producer up in Sonoma.
Yeah.
Without those people, it makes it pretty bleak to think of like working those hours for that pay and then not to have the products that you love to work with. And so that's another, it's just all connected, you know, like without restaurants, it's impossible to sell some Brent Wolf quail at a place like Whole Foods.
You remember Burgundy Basin Inn?
Yeah.
Gone.
Wow.
Gone. And that's a place that did weddings and catering. That's why I'm so surprised to hear how the caterers there are doing, because I got my first catering job this weekend, and that was from a friend.
Wow.
Because I had another lady call me from Xerox. She goes, "Can you do individual?" And I go, "Individual what?" She goes, "Individual foods." You know what I mean, like plates of things. I said, "For how many people?" She goes, 90. I go, "Absolutely not. I can't." You know what I mean? You're used to doing a buffet.
Yeah.
I can't do 90. And that's why I was curious that the young lady that, you know, is a caterer, and that they're still going on. The caterers here are hurting, man. They're hurting. And the wedding, you know, the wedding places they're hurting. You can't do it. Can't do it. I was curious. I mean, I was shocked to hear you guys are still doing so much catering.
Yeah, well, we're not doing catering this year. Everything, all of the weddings that were scheduled are now postponed until next year.
They got pushed back. Yeah.
So everything has been, you know, repackaged in a way, and we're really focusing our energy now with helping with the restaurant collaboration and doing that.
Yeah.
So we're not actually interacting with people or doing any events. The only events that we're doing are sort of this re-envisioned kind of drop-off situation, which is still very sparse. So most of it is just restaurant work and kind of devoting this time to thinking about the new business and kind of devoting some energy to that.
Well, I think I'm going to have to cut it here. This has been such an incredible conversation. Thank you all for giving us such a lovely perspective and sharing your stories. And this has been so much fun. And I think ending it kind of on a positive note was a little more easy to swallow, I guess. But it's pretty awesome. And I think trying to support your local purveyors, support your local restaurants, support your local farmers, support your local hardware stores. I think it's really important, and we've just got to share our love from 6 feet apart. But thank you so much, everyone. Good luck to everyone at Enterprises, and have a lovely rest of your evening and an excellent weekend.
Thanks.
Fran, I'll tell you.
Good luck with
Bye,
everyone.
guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Nice to meet everyone. Nice to meet everyone.
Nice to meet you guys. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Everyone be safe.
You better believe it. Wonderful.